Today, Patrick is going to share everything he knows about building million-dollar businesses and generating wealth. Patrick's bet David is a serial entrepreneur with a net worth of over $500 million. Patrick founded Valuetainment, the biggest entrepreneurship channel in the world, and he owns several more multi-million dollar businesses, one of which he recently sold for over $300 million. Today, Patrick is going to cover the following topics. Number 1, how anyone can be a successful entrepreneur. Number 2, the 4 routes to generating wealth. Number 3, Patrick's bulletproof sales process. Number 4, the foundations of building a successful business. And finally, tips for starting a business with $0. And if you can't sit down and watch for 5 minutes, I'm sorry, you're probably not gonna make it.
Let's say you're 18 to 25 years old, okay? Maybe you got some college, okay? And maybe you're undecided on what you wanna do with your life. You're highly ambitious, you have fire, you wanna do something big with your life, but no specialized skill sets, okay? You don't have anything right now, okay? So I can either go buy an online course and learn it. I can either go read a ton of books, which I should do it anyways, or the fastest way is I go shadow somebody. This is number 1 for me. When I'm 21 years old, I get out of the Army. I want to go be a bodybuilder, okay? I go to Mr. Olympia in Las Vegas. I realize I don't want to put everything in my body because I'm too tall. I'm 6'5", so which means on off season, I have to be 400 pounds. And most guys that are 6'4", 6'5" bodybuilders, they die at 35 to 45 years old. So I don't want to do it. So I realized this isn't for me. On the drive back, I get a call from Mr. Dave Kirby. Dave Kirby is Morgan Stanley Dean Witter's branch manager. He offers me a job a day before 9/11, which is 9/10/2001. We all know what happened on 9/11. Day 1 in Glendale. I get into financial services industry because there's a couple things I knew. You need to know yours. I love people. I am curious about his story. He showed me a video about your son, blown away by it. 7 years old, the way he speaks. 2, I love numbers. So these 2 to me, very high priority. So the love in people is I'm curious. The love in numbers, I like stats. So I go into financial services and I'm working on Morgan Stanley Dean Witter. Then I go and leave to Transamerica because I want to see what I can do to be independent instead of being an employee doing sales. There for 7.5 years, I shadowed some of the best people in business. A girl named Jamie, a guy named John who was a former attorney, a man named Rich, another great guy, Jeff became a good friend of mine, another great mentor named Greg. I'm watching all of these guys for 7.5 years while I'm taking courses, while I'm reading books. At 7-year mark, my temper is starting to annoy me because the people I was working there, I asked this one guy that was supposedly the face of the company, what is the vision of where this company is going? We're in Hawaii, he's sitting across from me. I said, I want you to look at me in my eye when I'm talking to you. I'm 29 years old. He says, the sun is in my eyes. I said, let's switch seats because you need to look at me. He looks at me an hour later, he tells me, Pat, you're right. We don't have a vision for the company.
Big mistake in business.
I can't be there. Exactly 6 months later after that, on 9/23/2009, I started an insurance company. 90 days prior to this event, I had an event together at JW Marriott called Saving America Doing the Impossible. I'm dressed as George Washington. There's a 40-foot Mount Rushmore on the stage. There's pictures online, you can find it. My wife is dressed as Lady Liberty. I get up and I said, we're gonna save America, we're gonna do the impossible. That's what the theme of the event was. 90 days later, I start the company. And then from there, I said 20 years, I will stay in one industry, which was insurance and finance. At the 20-year and 11th mark, I sold a business for $250 million and I owned 88% of the business. If we look at it, right, let's just say we're pursuing wealth. I can be an entrepreneur, which this is the one you want on your Twitter profile. By the way, you know what entrepreneur means for 90% of people? That they lost a job. That they got fired.
When I was an entrepreneur 30 years ago, when I first started out, everyone would say to me, you can't get a job, right? I'd be like, yeah, that's basically it. So I've had to start something on my own.
Well, but there's true entrepreneurs and there's entrepreneurs that think they're entrepreneurs. There's a big difference. The delusional people are you were a terrible employee and you're also a terrible entrepreneur. Then there is those that are terrible employees, but they're great entrepreneurs. And then there's the few that are great employees and great entrepreneurs. So this will take a while for us to find out which one of those three you are.
There is another category, by the way, which is sometimes people, you've made a very important distinction. You made a list of things you like to do, and then you've got really good at them.
Yes.
So you can be a really good entrepreneur if you do that, but a lot of people try to be an entrepreneur. Let's say they try to be the salesperson for the company and they're rubbish.
Yep.
But they don't know to hire the best salesperson, for example.
Sure.
So because you're not good at sales, but you might be good at numbers, you might be good at other things,
Totally.
right? So I think people got to list out, first step is list out what you love to do and get bloody good at it.
Yep.
Any way you can, right? It's basically
For
what
sure.
you're saying.
Yeah, for sure.
So entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneur is I work for you. Okay, and let's just say you're more a CTO, you're more a COO type, or maybe you're a real COO, CEO founder, right? But I come in and I bring the technical side to you. I come in, I bring the operations side to you that you lack. You're not that organized. I am, right? I bring the financial side, I bring the strategy side, I bring the creative side, right? Or I get involved with you at the lowest level, and I'm the one that keeps coming up, and eventually you're like, wait a minute. This guy's so reliable. They said the number one quality of a person that eventually became a Fortune 500 CEO that started within that company. Bob Iger was a guy that started as a regular employee, eventually became the CEO of Amazon, and he was at ABC. The number one quality that eventually reveals this person's going to be a CEO is reliability. Number one.
Do what you say.
Is reliability. And out of all the C-suite positions, you know what's the least likely of becoming a CEO? You got the CTO, CMO, CSO, CO. You know what's the least likely to become a CEO? CMOs.
People that just don't do what they say they're going to do.
But it's CMOs. Only 4% of CMOs become CEOs. Most CFOs on COOs become CEOs. And like the recent guy that just became the CEO of Starbucks. Do you know the story of Brian Niccol?
The share price went at 8% the day. They quit.
Stud of a guy. Yeah, the old guy was a former McKinsey guy.
Yeah.
And it was a Pepsi guy. He comes in and in an interview says, don't call me after 6 o'clock. I don't need to talk to you after 6 o'clock. Wait till then. This CEO is telling, this is a McKinsey guy. Brian Niccol goes to Chipotle. The day he gets hired as a CEO of Chipotle in 2018, company's worth $7 billion. The day he leaves Chipotle, it's worth $71 billion. The day he goes to the day he goes to Starbucks and they give him his offer, he gets a $110 million contract. That day, Starbucks made $20 billion when the announcement was made.
So what does he do differently that makes it? So
He's a guy that knows how to bring people together, rally them, and drive. Standards, creativity, data. He was able to create the online shop for Starbucks, which was, for Chipotle in a way where it's like, I'm just going to place the order, go pick up. I'm going to place the order. And Starbucks lacks in that. Their app absolutely sucks at Starbucks, right? So they want to bring a guy that's specialized in that area. However, Brian Niccol was a former CMO. He was one of the 4%ers that eventually became a CEO of Fortune 500 company. And he was a CMO, I think, at Pizza Hut or Domino's Pizza, one of those places that eventually came to the top. So entrepreneur is the one that stick around and eventually you get equity, boom, you become the leader.
Make sure they get equity.
And by the way, this part, Andy Jassy. Andy Jassy used to be the guy that worked for a guy named Jeff Bezos, helping run AWS. AWS, they're making 60 to 80% profit, hosting services, right? Eventually, Bezos is stepping away. He brings Jassy. Jassy runs Amazon. Same with Jobs. Jobs is running, Apple. He brings in Tim Cook. The day he hires Tim Cook to become the CEO, Apple is worth $100 billion. Jobs dies at 56. Fast forward from $100 billion, Tim Cook took the company from $100 billion to $3 trillion. Tim Cook's never been an entrepreneur. He's a billionaire as an entrepreneur. So then the next is just a pure sales.
Just on this one, just quickly on the one thing I would say, because sometimes people listening, they've got to come back down to like earth. For a lot of people, this is quite highbrow. My wife was a graphic designer. And when I met her, I said, you're an entrepreneur, and she didn't think she was. She said, no, I'm a graphic designer. I said, no, you need to partner up with someone that you think is an entrepreneur. So I'm the sales and the marketing guy. Without you though, I can't build a business, just create a business. So I need you. You do your creative thing, but you're still an entrepreneur. Own equity is part of my definition of an entrepreneur, right? You don't necessarily need to be the persona of what people think is an entrepreneur. She was an entrepreneur. She worked hard. She always delivered. She would work through the night to get the work done. She cared as much as I did. She was good at her job. She was an entrepreneur. She just wasn't thinking she was, because she thought she was just a graphic designer, right? So this entrepreneur thing, she thought she was an entrepreneur at the beginning. I've convinced her eventually. not an entrepreneur. She saw me as the entrepreneur. But then you team up. I couldn't do it without her. She couldn't do it without me.
Listen, there is this notion that this is sexier than this.
Yeah, which is not true.
But it's not true. If you look at Ballmer from Microsoft, who was the 5th employee, Gates was the founder. Ballmer today is worth more than Gates is.
I think we need a new word, by the way. Entrepreneur has completely misled people. I think entrepreneurship is what you were just saying there. It's a combination of you do what you say you're going to do, you follow through, you kind of don't give up unless there's an obvious reason to give up, and you have a vision and a mission that drives you to go and do it. To me, that should be the new definition. Entrepreneurship's got people
There is levels to the game. So sales, let's go to the next one. Sales. This right here, for somebody who is a very independent personality, look, leave me alone. I just want to go make my money, do whatever I want to do, be financially free, have my own schedule. I'm willing to work my ass off for 5 to 10 years. Then I just kind of want to do my own thing. This is the fastest way to make $250 to $2 million a year sales. And it's a bad life for 5 to 10 years. 10 years later, you do it right. It's a great life. Okay. But that's sales. That's one way to make money in this. But again, this right here may be the most important route to take to shadow someone. So it's almost like when people say, what industry should I get involved in? I'm like, it's not about industry, it's about who to work for. You work for a guy who's a driver, who is a killer for 3 years in an industry you do not want to be a part of. Is 100 times more valuable than getting in an industry that you want to be a part of, but you work for somebody that's a schlep. The person you learn from on a daily basis is way more valuable than the actual industry.
There's also a personal brand alignment. Who you work with will reflect on you over time
within
the business community.
I agree. So then we have the next one. The next one is I want to be an influencer. Okay. I want to be famous. I want to be an influencer. I want to go that route. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Being famous is overrated. Having the ability to do things is underrated.
For sure. But let's just say somebody says, you know what? I want to go be famous. I want to go have, a big following. I want to walk into the market and for people to stop me and take selfies with me and all this other stuff. And I'm going to get sponsorships and that's what I'm going to be doing. Great. So then in this part, we have to ask if you actually have talent. So you can look at, are you funny? Are you interesting? Are you super smart? Are you a great storyteller? Are you entertaining? Okay, are you so brilliant in certain topics that you can go deep? Are you a good host? Do you have the way you analyze something that's different than everybody else's? Everybody can go and see a situation on election or politics or business or a restaurant or a sports team, and everybody's like, well, I just think he's being lazy. And another person, maybe what most people don't know about, last night, if you look at his Instagram story, he was partying until 3 o'clock in the morning with a girl, and he came in and his next story was this guy just had 3 hours of sleep last night. There's no way in the world you're gonna come in and be able to, and like, oh wow, this guy actually did the research. That's a good point. I didn't even think about it. Who's partying? That's the part where you're analytical, where people wanna know what your opinion is on an issue. Rogan, what does Rogan think? People wanna know what he thinks. Then there's a great host. Hey, so what do you think? 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 Then there's a great interviewer. Okay, some interviewers, people care about their opinion, but most interviewers, people don't care what they think. They care about what the people they interview think. So then you have a trifecta of a talent. Trifecta of a talent is somebody that's a good host, can go deep on a lot of different topics, and has got a larger than life personality. Charismatic, storytelling. You got somebody like that, now you're talking about somebody that can garner a lot of audience. But this, people think this happens overnight. That could take 5 to 10 years, and it's not for everybody. 99% of people shouldn't do this.
Everyone can learn sales.
Everyone can learn sales.
Maybe this is just one form of it, maybe not the right route.
And by the way, as an influencer, managing expectation with influence is also very important. Person with 2,000 followers in a specific village that 20,000 people live in, and your 2,000 followers are from that village, you're a massive influencer in that village, that community. So who is your audience that's following you as well is very critical. But if this is coming from a noble place, do it, go for it. If it's coming from a place of, arrogance and all that other stuff, you can still do. I'm not telling you don't do it, but the purpose of it will be disappointing long term.
Unless you have a vision and a mission, back to what you were saying earlier, a reason to do it, it's only useful then. Otherwise, it can be a burden. Right?
Yeah,
being famous is actually a burden.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, goes and sits down with the managers at WME, and he says, "Look, guys, I want to be Will Smith, but bigger. I want to be Arnold, but bigger. I want to be this, but bigger." Guess what he's saying? I'm competitive. And then one day Dana White calls him and says, "Hey, Rock, how come you're not on social media? You'd kill it on this thing." He says, "No, I don't want to do anything with Instagram." Dana White from UFC convinces The Rock to get on social media and Instagram. Today he's got 600 million followers.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's backstory. I didn't know that at all. That's amazing.
And that 600 million followers, Zoa Energy, Papatui, Terama, all these other things that he did with the social media back.
But people listening don't understand it. What's the line? People want the exposure, but they don't want to do the work.
Yes.
So Dwayne Johnson, he will actually have had to make sacrifice to do that. People don't understand. He has his freedom sacrifice too. He goes out, he'll be mobbed, right? You can't go walk the streets anymore. He's working even hard. He's doing the content himself, like you do. He's not necessarily outsourcing
He's
all the
a
work.
monster. Right? He's a monster of a worker.
Yeah. So people don't understand. Even at that level, he's working like a monster.
Yes.
Right. So. But you're an influencer now. Do you describe yourself as that sometimes?
People consider me an influencer. Yeah, and now I know how I'm using this for what I want to do. And it accelerates the process.
So on sales, how did you get good at sales?
So again, if we go back to it, I'm very curious. So my entire sales approach starts with a needs analysis. Everything I do, I start with a needs analysis. Husband and wife come up to me. Where marriage is not working out. Really? Yes. Okay, how long have you guys been feeling this way? Question number one. 6 months. Okay, how long have you guys been together? 12 years. Have you guys gone through this before as well? Yes, in our 5th year of marriage. When this happens, what typically causes it? Well, it's normally because of X, Y, Z and da-da-da. Okay, both times was the same thing? Yes. Why did you guys get married to each other? Well, da-da-da-da-da. But why else? Why did you? Why did she? So needs analysis.
You know everything about them and understand whether they're going to buy.
Of course. So by the way, this needs analysis approach then becomes a consultative sales approach, not a closer. You know how they say, I can say ice to Eskimo? I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I can't do that. But if I start off with curiosity and needs analysis, and my interviews, my podcast, they're all needs analysis, okay? I want to get to the motive. I want to find out what caused you to X, Y, Z. I want to find out what caused you to go and compete at the levels you did. What caused you to... I brought a guy once from UK who was the guy that would interview people who right after they killed somebody, their spouse, he would be the guy that would do the interviews. His name is Jim Clement.
A lot of questions.
I don't think this is from US. This guy is from UK. His name is Jim Clement, a former FBI supervisor / profiler. So imagine a guy just killed his wife. He's one of the guys that's running, and he comes in and he says, "Oh my God, I would really want to know who killed my wife." He's the first guy that interviews him. And I said, "Jim, after all these years you did this, what do you think causes these people to do this?" Again, I want to know motive. Look what he tells me. Revolutionary. He says to me, he says, genetics loads the gun.
Right. It's in you already.
Personality and psychology aims it.
Right.
Experiences causes you to pull the trigger.
It's the same in the sales cycle in reverse.
Right? Exactly. But the point is, I'm interviewing that guy because I want to know the motive. What would cause somebody to do something like this? Got it. That's why. What causes somebody to become a... So everything is my needs analysis approach, number one. Number two is a consultative approach, questions. So here's what I would do if I were you. That is my recommendation. Here's what I would do if I were you. Consultative selling versus, hey, you better get this. I'm not that guy. I've never liked selling like that, right? So curiosity, needs analysis, consultative, and then from here, if you want to know like the evergreen stuff that no matter what I know, I'm going to beat my competitors, most people are so lazy with follow-up. I was the follow-up king is what I was. I was the follow-up king. I called up in my script. When I noticed you wouldn't pick up, I'd leave a message for you and I would say, "Hey, Simon, Patrick Bet David here. I don't know if you heard what happened or not, but you were the first person I thought about. I think you probably want to know what just happened. Call my son when you get this message, da-da-da-da-da." You'd get the message like, what happened? Pat, what happened? Rates just went down. And let me tell you what the market's been doing. Have you watched the stock market? No, what happened? When are we going to get together? And then now you're like, oh, okay. Now I got you on the phone. So instead of getting a 10% response on a call, now I'm getting 50% callback. So people are like, in sales, never leave a message. I leave a message. And you got to call me back. So I was a follow-up guy. And eventually I would say, hey, Simon, let me just simplify for you. How would you like to be 2 years younger? And people would say, excuse me? How would you like to be 2 years younger? Pat, yeah, of course I'd like to be 2 years younger. I said, fantastic. I said, in the next 2 years, you're eventually going to do business with me because I'm very good at what I do. And I know this would be good for you, that if I were you, I would also take advantage of it. I'd like to save you the 2 years of waiting for us to do business together now. When can we get together? That was a follow-up. So I'd get back together with you. Everything to me, I knew this was gonna guarantee my success because I was going to keep following up with you. Then, unique experience. I wanted you to leave me and say, man, nobody treats me like the way that guy treats me. That guy was just different. So I'd go, we sit down with a guy named Eli, who's a guy who was one of my mentors early on. I go to his place, I'm like, oh my God, this guy was doing all-star entrepreneurs. We're at a hotel right down the street from LAX. Like, this guy's phenomenal on stage. The way he would sell was incredible. So then I got close to him. He invites me to his 50th birthday party in Canaan Road, which is in Westlake, California. It's a high-end place. I go to the party. I'm the brokest guy in the room, okay? I stay till 2 o'clock in the morning. Party's done. His wife, Jelena. I say, hey, can I help you wash it? Jelena, go grab a seat. It's been a long day for you. I'll wash the dishes. I'm washing the dishes. And they're watching me. 30 minutes, I'm washing all the dishes. And I'm talking to them. 2:30, everybody's out the house. Now I got to them one-on-one. And we start talking. He tells me about his son, that he went to jail because he almost killed somebody. And he went to jail for 9 years. And he says, no one wants to go visit my son. I said, I'll do it. He said, you'll do it? I said, yeah. He says, it's a background check. You're going to U.S. Men's Colony. It's not a good jail. I said, I don't have a problem. Give my social. 30 days later, I go to the jail. I go visit his son, Wadia, okay? I'm there all day. I spend 8 hours with this guy. I want nothing in return from Eli. I come back. He's emotional crying. He says, you know, nobody went and visited my son. Eli says, how can I help you? I said, I don't know. He says, what do you do right now? I said, I started an insurance business, financial business. He hands me the Rolodex, 600 phone numbers. He says, call them and let them know I gave you their phone numbers. He gives me the number. One of the guys I called is a guy named Ed Wade. He introduced me to another guy named George Palayo. Through this contact that he made, I made somewhere between $30 to $50 million from this one contact. So follow up, unique experience, unreasonable hospitality, going above and beyond for people. Eventually, all of these things combined, people say, listen, I'm just gonna do business with this guy. This is a evergreen, proven, no matter what the product is, you're gonna do well in sales.
The big takeaway I take on this as well is the relationship side as well. Like, you go deep on the relationship side. You make it personal. Everyone says business isn't personal. Absolutely not true, right? You make it personal and you create a sense with these people that this is long term. Because I think that's the other thing. People will try to make money quickly out of people instead of build a relationship over the long term. And that's what I take away from this too. You've gone deep with this person. You've gone the extra mile in the hospitality. They've then given you an opportunity, and then you've gone and followed up again and again and again and again till it's happened. The luck happened.
But it's a level of confidence it gives you because it's a proven method. You're not winging. It's not maybe this will work out. This is going to work out. Okay, this is going to work out. Behind the scenes, I'm working 80 hours a week. Behind the scenes, I'm the guy on Saturday when everybody would leave the sales office at 4 o'clock. I'm 25 years old. Everybody wants to go party with me. I would say 5 people are remaining. I'd say, guys, are we going to the club tonight? We're going to the club tonight, people. I said, great. Why don't we go after we make 50 calls and we each book 5 appointments? Let's roll. So I would say that, and by 5:30, the 5 guys were like, hey guys, I hit up. No way, yes. Awesome, I'm gonna go get ready to go to the club. I'm like, guys, how about we do this? What's that? Let's go 1 more 50 calls and 5 appointments. 2 guys are like, nah man, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna go get ready. No problem. But 2 guys are like, BBD, let's go. Round 2. 50 calls. Awesome. 50 calls, 5 appointments. Awesome. Now it's 7 o'clock. Guys, no. One more. No. Then they leave. Then I stay. 50 calls, 5 more appointments. Now I show up to the club at 11 o'clock, okay? They left at 7:30. I know, it's a given. You're not gonna beat me.
It's a numbers game again.
Because I'm not gonna stop the most intimidating quality you'll ever find in competition. There's nothing more intimidating than this, nothing. It's not size, it's not strength, it's not power. It's the fact that your opponent is not going to stop and you eventually will. Those who continue and their opponents stop are the most hated people in the world. Elon Musk, when he used to be $2 billion, they're like, this guy's very smart. Then he continues at 100. Then he continues at 250. You think Bezos likes that? You think all these other guys like that? Why do you think they hate the guy? Because he's not stopping.
Now, as a business owner, I value business security above anything else. It's something I've often neglected in my life. It's a big mistake. It's the foundation of any successful business. One of the first things I adopted in a growing team was a password manager for our daily activities. So we chose NordPass, an effortless password manager created by the cybersecurity experts behind NordVPN. Do you know that people waste on average 11 hours per year resetting passwords? And that many times cyber attacks happen due to weak passwords that people use and reuse, such as 123456. Yes, it's been the most popular password for years and it takes just 1 second to crack it. Imagine having to remember 20 passwords so you can put them on your notebook or reuse one password for all accounts. If one gets compromised, it's game over. With NordPass, I'm able to easily generate and autofill strong passwords across all my devices. I can share credentials and credit card details safely with my team and collaborators with the ability to revoke access when required. So no more doubts regarding who has access to what or tiring asks to reset passwords. This is hugely beneficial as my team continues to grow. Another great feature is the easy to use data breach scanner, which alerts me if one of my credentials has been leaked. This really gives me peace of mind that I want you to have too, and I need to run my business without worrying about any of my personal information being shared on the dark web. So what are you waiting for? Give it a try, it's free. Secure your business today. Use the code SIMON at nordpass.com/Simon to get a free 3-month NordPass business trial. No credit card required. So let's just go back a step.
Sure.
You started an insurance company.
Yeah.
How did you do it? For people listening that know that story of how you built that company up and sold it for hundreds of millions, how?
Okay, so when I first started for 7.5 years, and I was a broker in the other company, right? Transamerica WFG. When I was there, I never produced one person that made $100,000 a year. I was a great salesperson, but I was an okay sales leader. And one day I sit down and I ask, why am I an okay sales leader? And I realized a few things. One, everything about being a great sales leader, you have to be able to transfer skills. So how do you transfer skills? There's a coach in America, a football coach, is no longer with us. His name is Bill Walsh. He produced the most assistant coaches that went to the Super Bowl. And everybody would ask, what made this guy so special? He was famous for always having listicles. What's a listicle? 7 keys to ... 12 keys to ... So he had this manual. He would give it over to you as a coach. You go coach another team and you're like, hey, how do I fire a player? Okay, page 228. 12 keys to firing your quarterback. Everything was a transferable skill set. I did not have that. My sales business as a sales leader was a personality-driven business, okay? Instead, sales transfer. So my priority became systems. So that was number one. I needed systems. Everything to me was about systems. I built some of the most legendary manuals in the insurance industry that people use, how to put conferences together, how to write letters to your clients, how to overcome objections, how to sell any product in the insurance space. And a lot of the people in the marketplace use that. So it's systems. But this didn't get us to $250 million. We're a $500 million company right now. When I sold it was $250 million. Second thing was you have to know people and how to move people. People are generally driven by 4 different things. 1 is lifestyle, okay? 2 is purpose, okay? 3 is like next step. What do I need to do next? Like it's almost like a listicle, what's the next step that I got to, and then the next one is madness. Madness are the psychos. They want to compete. They want to correct an injustice. They're very. If you speak this language to this guy, it will not work. This guy just wants to be directed on whatever his next 3 to 5 moves. This guy wants to know about the enemy. This guy wants to know about who the opponent is. This guy wants to know what's the record to break. That's this guy. This guy is different. He wants to know about the fact that we're making a difference in people's lives and positively impacting, right? This one wants the Ferrari. This one wants to give the middle finger to his teacher in school. This one wants the Lambo, the big house, the watches. So I had to learn how to communicate to my audience based on what drove them. So learning how to drive people is very important.
This is very similar to your research piece earlier when you're talking about your sales process. You've got to do the same with your team.
Yes.
What drives them? What's motivating them?
Exactly.
What do they really want? Not what you want, what do they want?
For sure. So that's that. Number 3 is, I go to New York to meet with 6 investment bankers. This was one of the best experiences.
To invest in the company. Invest in the
Yeah, to invest in the insurance company. And I wanted to know what my company was worth. By the time I'm done, I'm like, so, hey, if my EBITDA is 10 million, what am I worth? Everybody said, what's your business? After 6 hours with all these guys, I'm a 5x EBITDA. I said, so let me get this straight. I'm doing 10 million a year and I'm just worth 50 million? Yeah. That's it? Yeah. I'm not interested in that. I said, tell me which insurance companies recently have sold that are 15, 20x. He starts giving me the names. I said, why do they sell for 15 to 20x? They're tech enabled. Tell me more. I said, I have technology. He says, is it yours or are you renting it? No, I'm renting it, but I'm using it. He says, no one gives a shit. What's yours? I said, nothing. We went back, raised $10 million, started a software called Bamboo, became tech enabled, sold the company for 16x EBITDA.
Owning the IP is so underrated. People don't understand this.
This was the key for the big payday.
It made it scalable too, right? It's another form of system.
It's unbelievable what it did. So part of it is being a good sales leader. Part of it was being systematic. Part of it was knowing how to communicate to different people in different ways. And then it was technology. I can give you more. I'm just giving you some of the basics right now.
When do you know to outsource and when do you know to build it yourself like that?
Whatever's going to help my business scale exponentially on valuation, I'm going to do that. If it's outsourcing more than me building, I'm going to do that. But 9 out of 10 times it's building than outsourcing. And so eventually I'm sitting there like, I'm renting all these softwares. Okay. Can I take my 7 and put 7 of them into 2? Yes. That's what we did. I'll rent this one, but I'll take this 6 and make it 1. Let it rip. And then it went. I mean, everybody in the insurance industry knows about our software, who built their business like ours. And by the way, we never did leads. We never gave leads. 100% of our sales guys always got their leads themselves. All our competitors were selling leads to their guys. We never did that. Everybody had to do it themselves.
And what you're building today, does it have the same structure?
No, today's a very different story. If you want to race, I'll show you what I'm doing today.
Just before we go there, so when you started the business, did you have money to start the business or did you raise
$500,000?
So you
I
had
had $500,000.
So you saved up from your past endeavors, and that's how you started the company, and then you raised money because you had 88%, so you sold some equity, gave some to staff, I'm assuming, right?
Yep.
And that's how you built the business with $500,000.
So it was my $500,000. That's one. Then I raised the first $1 million, but this was revenue-backed funding. I paid 33%
you used the 500 to get to revenue.
Yes.
You got this to revenue before you then raised money.
Yeah, then I raised $1 million, which was expensive money. Then 3 was 10 million. Then 4, I raised 35 to buy out all my, former investors. Then 5, we sold.
It's very important, just quickly, for people that realize you didn't have experience at this point.
Never.
They didn't back you
this.
because you'd done it previously.
I've never raised money. I've never been a CEO of a company. I didn't know what I was doing.
What do you think? Was it the discovery bit that got you the money? Did you research people before you pitched them, or was it just
no?
You did
What by far, if you were to ask me why I was able to pull this off, is I recruited people very well. I recruited a guy whom I was introduced to in 2008, who is now probably my best friend and my business partner, Tom Ellsworth. This guy has raised and sold $2.2 billion of companies. He was part of Jamdat. It was the first video game on phones. He sold that for $680 million in 2004.
How did you convince him to join?
Well, we met at church. First, my pastor introduced me to him.
Common moral code.
Then our wives introduced him to him. Then he introduced me to Vistage. I was part of Vistage for about a couple of years. Vistage is like the largest CEO networking group. You pay $1,500 a month, and 8-9 people come together, and they're from different industries, and you're processing issues together. So then during this time, him and I went to probably 20 or 30 events together, Inc. 500, we went to this, we went to that. And then whenever we go, we'd share rooms. So we became very good friends. Then in 2014, I asked him, I said, hey, what's your next thing? He says, what do you mean? I invited him to one of my events in 2011 with Steve Wozniak. He got emotional because he saw what we were doing. He's like, this is amazing what you're doing. 14, I said, hey, why don't you come and be the president of the company? He says, I don't have a background in insurance. I said, who cares? I want to be tech enabled. He came in, became the president. For 6 months, he was living in Texas. When he would fly out in California, he lived in one of my bedrooms in my house. 6 months later, we moved to Texas. And then from there, we've been doing business together since.
I love people doing business with friends. It's another thing. It's a misunderstanding. Don't do business with friends. It's one of those things out in the ether. Actually, it's very powerful if you get it right. You can literally hang out together, have fun. Totally underrated word as well.
And by the way, this part, the reason why this is important, I've never raised money. This guy had raised 2.2 billion. So I needed a guy who was an operations guy. He was a great PM. He was a technology guy. You know the last interview when Bill Gates and Steve Jobs did? I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I love that interview.
In red chairs.
They have respect for each other.
Guess
They're
what?
enemies.
Of course. There was 300 people invited to that meeting. You know who was one of them? Tom was one of them. Wow. He was in the room.
Finally, just going back to the beginning. If someone's listening to this, their mind's been blown about how you've achieved this all from those early days, that 12-year-old kid. If you were starting today, you've got no money, you want to give 3 or 4 steps, someone listening who is ambitious, has it, what can you give them?
Go make a list of 20 people who are the biggest killers in your community that you admire and find a way to work for one of them and rank them. Number 1 is this guy, number 2 is this guy, number 3 is this guy, number 4 is this guy, number 5 is this guy. Start here and then boom. But every one of them you want to work for. By the way, 90% of it is this for me. There's nothing about that. Recruit who you want to work for. Sell this person why you should go work for them. And let them know how special of a guy you are, a gal you are when you're working for their company.
Relevant skill set, like my team, I've got 17 people working in my team. All of them have gone and learned a skill that is so useful to what I'm trying to do. I think that's another thing. Is that maybe on your second thing? Learn a skill or bring some value to these people. Because if you just DM them, if I DM you and say, hey, can I come and work for you because it'll be good for me? You'll be like, get lost, So they've got to bring some value to you. So if they say to you, right, I figured out the TikTok algorithm. I know exactly how to get you viral on TikTok. Yeah. Give me a chance. Let me do it for one post for you for free. They prove value to you. How do people get in the door on this?
Listen. If I know my basic rules that I follow are 4 things. I know I'm going to outwork everybody, but that's not enough.
That's how you tell people, those 20 people.
I know if you come in, I know I'm going to do this. Number 2, I know I'm going to out improve you. I just know I am. Okay, I know I'm not going to stop. Number 3 is out strategize. Okay, because you need this. This is very valuable. And the last one is the one we talked about earlier, which is the most intimidating one. I'm going to outlast you. So if somebody comes in with this mindset, no matter where you put us, we're going to figure it out. For me, I went to Bally's. I didn't know how to sell, but I read every book I could on selling. I became obsessed about selling. So for me, number 2 is I've read 2,000 business books. This became my obsession, purely.
You've got one more now that's going to teach you so much.
So get ready. I love the title, but I became obsessed with business books. And the way I read wasn't based on what people recommended me. This is how I read. I have 600 books in my office. I'm not planning on reading any one of them. You know why? Because I choose what book I want to read at this phase of my life. So for example, I would read books based on topics. Let's just say it's going to be sales. I suck in sales right now. I'd buy every book on Amazon with 500 plus reviews. That's 4+ star. And I would read those books, every one of them, at order. That's all I'm reading.
I mean, to be honest, your book, to sit with you and have time with you is so expensive. Buy the book. What's it cost, that book?
Probably $15. I don't know what
you can get your knowledge, all of your knowledge in one book.
$18.
Yeah. Why don't people buy all of the books of all the successful people they admire?
Why don't they?
I don't know why they don't.
That's the great thing, though. You don't want them to buy. That's what makes you special that you do.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. The reality is people are not going to do it. So it was sales. Then it was negotiation. Then it was raising money. Then it was biographies. Then it was politics. Then it was faith. Then it was like one time when one of my enemies, really tried to bully me. I read a book called 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. For 2 years straight, was playing in my car on repeat. Everybody would sit in my car for 2 years and they would look at me like, "You're still listening to this?" Yes. Why? We're going to war. Okay, period. For 2 years straight, this is all I ever listened to in the car. Robert Greene. So
it became a part of you. This strategy and knowledge became a part of you.
It's not even funny how much of maybe it's a little too psychological, but it's definitely part of me.
Yeah.
So the books, 3, if your language, you're a friend or a relative, and your language had words that I didn't like, I couldn't be around you anymore. If you spoke a certain language, I just can't be around you.
So you cut people out that weren't right. That's what you're talking about. Young people should, like people starting a business should think.
Cutthroat. I'm out.
They're not bringing value to you. Gone.
I'm out.
Fair.
I am out. Okay, I am out.
I actually had to get rid of my mother. I had to get rid of my mother in my life for that same reason.
Your mother?
My own mother was poisoned in my life. So that's how hardcore I'm married to someone from Asia who revere parents, like look up to them no matter what. So for me to tell my wife I can't talk to my mum anymore was a big deal, right, in their culture.
Till today?
Till today I still don't speak to her, yeah. But that's so hard, this bit, because those people probably love you. Those probably seem like they care about you.
You know who else had a lot of people had complicated relationships with their mother. You know who was one of them? George Washington. Yeah. You ever heard the story of it?
Vaguely, yeah.
Okay. So that's this one.
You're ruthless about this though, right?
I'm not even, there's zero tolerance. You could be blood. I'm not dealing with you. I can't do it because you're getting in the way and you're.
Do you tell them straight or you just
straight up in a respectful way?
Calls, yeah.
Straight up in a number 4. Whatever is your addiction, you got to give that up. I gave it up, and I would say 5. If this is my brain, and I had all these things that was consuming percentages of my brain, I eliminated it to make me more focused on fewer things. So if I was part of certain leagues, fantasy football, whatever it was that I was doing, I don't have time for this.
Don't waste your
so
brain
I eliminated anything that was consuming any of my brain power. I'm out. And I made it more focused.
How did you decide what to keep in your life that from a mind? So for example, I don't own any property except for business, because I think it distracts my brain. If I'm renting out a premises and I have to deal with the tenant or even the company managing the tenant,
same here.
I don't bother.
I don't like.
And everyone will tell you, as soon as I've made money in my company, everyone told me to buy property and rent it out.
No desire.
This takes up your mind.
I have no desire for that.
Any other examples like that where you clear your mind? You think? I mean, I do think like Netflix and stuff is part of this problem for a lot of people, like addiction to.
Like I'll give you an idea. Last time I listened to radio is 03. I'm a big hip hop guy. Like I'm a massive hip hop guy, R&B, gangster rap. I know all of it, but my gangster rap and hip hop ended in 03. The last time I listened to the radio was 03. I've not listened to the radio since 03. So everything was about educational, feeding me, helping me grow. That's my interest. And if all of a sudden you catch yourself getting stuck in the swiping up type of business, I'm like, hey, boom. No, go watch an educational video or listen to your audiobook.
That's why you make content too, right?
Yeah.
You're not consuming content, you're making content.
I'm making
ironically,
content,
people consuming our content, they need to switch their brains to making content, not consuming it.
Yeah, that's what I
watch Straight Outta Compton, by the way. Have you watched that?
Of course.
That is a whole different. That is an education program.
Very much. I can tell you where I watch it and what happened. I was on Palm Springs on the way back from an event I had with a couple thousand people. On the way back, me, Mario, and Jennifer going to watch Straight Outta Compton. I forgot I had a case of wine given to me in my truck, and it was 110 degrees. We watched Straight Outta Compton, Tom Ellsworth's in the car. We come back, every one of the wine bottles blew up in the rental car. The car smells like crap with all the wine. For 2.5 hours, we had the most fiery conversation on the drive back from Palm Springs because we watched Straight Outta Compton in Palm Springs. It was the best.
I have that on loop in the background, whatever I'm doing. There is one thing I personally want to add, but I want to know if there's anything you've missed before I throw my own opinion in. There's one more thing. What do you think?
I'll tell you one last thing, okay? I just came from a meeting with my staff, and I'm going to reveal to you something I've been talking about the last few months that is purely an obsession of mine, okay? So let's play a game. For somebody that builds a $1 trillion company, versus a $100 billion auto company. What is the biggest difference between these two guys? For somebody that builds a $100 billion auto company versus a $10 billion auto company, what's the difference? 10 billion to 1 billion, what's the difference? A billion to 100 million, what's the difference? If we go and we size these five, what do you think is the real difference between a trillion auto company and a $100 billion auto company?
The story.
Okay.
The vision, back to what you said earlier.
What else?
The people to actually make it happen.
What else? It's crazy. It's crazy you're thinking about it right now, right? Let me tell you why. I had a meeting this last week with my CTO, my CHRO, my CSO, my president, and my CIO. And I said, listen, guys, I'm going on a 40-year run. I'm 45 years old right now. I'm going till I'm 85. And if I'm healthy, I'm going to keep going. But I'm going 40-year run. I said, I don't know if you're going to be with me for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You get to pick and choose how long. I'm going 40, right? I said, but regardless, since I know I'm going 40, and regardless, since we know we have all this stuff that we built, integrated businesses, what's the difference between, we're going to have to work hard anyways, because you think the guys that build a $1 trillion company work harder than a $1 billion, 100 billion? No.
I worked hardest when I had a gardening company. Like, that small little company was the harder work because I couldn't go on holiday.
So you're getting close.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do you think is the difference?
It's infinite. It's never ending. It's not.
But it's so simple though. Trust me, you know. It's not the people, okay? Walmart has 2.5 million employees. Some of these companies only have 100,000 and they're trillion dollar companies. What is the difference between Apple, Nvidia, Amazon, Google, name them, say Facebook. What is the difference between them and a $100 billion company?
Delayed gratification?
Nope. It's, by the way, it's actually so freaking ridiculously
The only way
simple.
I can reverse engineer this question is to think of someone who's doing it. Elon Musk isn't just he's not competing with NASA. He's literally saving the planet in his head.
Okay.
Right? So I can't help but say it's some form of vision.
It is, but think about that. All he's doing is he's solving a bigger problem. The only difference between these guys is the problem they're solving is bigger, not smaller. It's a bigger problem they're solving. And the bigger the problem you solve, the more money the market will pay you. For example, Amazon originally starts off to want to do what? Books.
Yeah.
Okay?
Then customers say, I wouldn't mind some windscreen wiper blades.
That's right. And then what comes?
Then they say, well, I wouldn't mind getting everything basically.
Right? But then what comes up at this level?
Technology.
Then somebody says, hey, how about we have a hosting company?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Amazon Web Services starts 60 to 80% margins. You know who runs Amazon Web Services? A guy named Andy Jassy. You know what ends up happening to Andy? Andy is now the CEO of Amazon.
Well, Amazon's profitable margin business in it all because they already have all this stack.
So check this out. This wasn't intentional. This became accidental. And this is increasing the valuation the most, right? But while you're going, you're forcing everybody on your team to be thinking about a bigger problem to solve. Okay? If you go to Apple, same thing with them. They build everything that's integrated, right? Our idea right now with our company, that I had the conversation with them today, is what I want us to do is to be thinking about, because we're going on a run no matter what. What do we need to do to be a $100 billion company? And what do we need to do to be a $1 trillion company? Versus just, because right now the way we're growing, we'll be a $10 billion company within 5 to 10 years. It's not bragging. We're not like, hey, we're going to be a $10 billion company. No, it's a given. But man, if we're going to be doing it, what do we need to do to go think like this or like this? So now everyone leaves the meeting thinking, what if we solve that problem? So for example, back in the days, Carnegie versus Rockefeller, right? Carnegie is what? Steel. Rockefeller is what? Railroad and oil and whatever you want to call it, right? This guy, Carnegie, was bullying this guy. He's like, who the hell are you? I've been around the block. I'm Carnegie. He says, excuse me? No problem. You want to talk shit to me and not get back to me? That's great, Mr. Carnegie. My railroads are no longer moving your steel. Oh shit, we have a problem. No shit, Sherlock. Give me a call. And they did. You know who that person is today? Musk. Everybody thought Musk was trying to compete in the car company, car business. No, he wasn't.
Robots.
He built battery plants, chargers all across the country. Guess who needs him? Every car company, including the government that talks shit to him, now they're knocking on his door. See, to him, He just solved a bigger problem. Over and over and over again. So for us, what mindset we're at, we've already solved this one. We've already solved this one. Almost we're there. We're gonna solve this within 5 to 10 years. But what do we need for this and for this? So for somebody that's watching this, if you're continuously thinking about, you're growing the business, you're gonna do the 80 hours a week. You're gonna do this part no matter what. But you can do 80 hours a week and solve a problem that's a 1 versus solve a problem that's a 10. The work is gonna be the same amount of work, but the size of wealth that you create could be 100-fold.
For people listening, I know the answer, I think, but I want to validate this. Why, if you're not going to sell a company, does it matter that it's worth $1 trillion?
Why, if you're not gonna, why care if it's $1 trillion? It's not just about the trillion. It's about how big you think. Because if I'm gonna be working and driving, why not think bigger about the problems to solve? So I have resources to be able to make a bigger positive impact. Why just go for the small? Why just go and be, hey, I want to be a great basketball player in my city. I want to be a great basketball player in my state. I want to be a great basketball player in my country. I want to be a great basketball player. I want to be the greatest basketball player in the world. Why not think bigger? And in business, part of it is, you're like, well, in basketball and sports, you need genetics. In business, maybe a little bit of genetics. But in business, if a culture is created to constantly be thinking about a bigger problem to solve, and everybody's bought into the vision that if we run for this, I'm gonna be rewarded as well long-term, let it rip. Let's go see what we're capable of doing. It's a level of excitement and enthusiasm. And if you can get everybody bought in, that becomes a movie that we all end up eventually watching and, reading about.
Plus, you can attract any talent when you're thinking that big. I mean, I always loved the thing with Steve Jobs, with the guy, the Coca-Cola guy, like, do you want to make fizzy drink or change the world?
That's right.
That's basically also it, isn't it? Like, you can bring any talent in when you've got this sort of vision, and that makes it happen. It's self-fulfilling.
No question.
Right? I loved it. Thank you so much for taking
Anytime.
time. You are an absolute rock star. We're off now to have some chicken. Thanks very much for listening. And remember, use the code Simon at nordpass.com/Simon to get a free 3-month NordPass business trial.